Every single football fan has a relationship with our next guest because his voice is synonymous with NFL coverage to this day. Trey Wingo, nice enough to join us here on 95.7 The Game. A Wingo Wednesday? Oh, yeah, we're back to it. It's good to have you on, Trey. Thanks for joining us here on Damon and Ratto. It's a pleasure. We know we got a lot of stuff that you got your hands in a lot of pots these days.
I do, Damon, Ray. Great to be with you. Always a pleasure. Let's bring back Wingo Wednesday. We're excited about that. Happy to be working with Caesars Sportsbook, Pro Football Network. I do a show every week with Spotify Live with Mark Schlereth. Announcement a little here, a little premature, but we're doing it anyway. We're going to just join the 33rd team, which is very excited about that. And, of course, the Half Forgotten History podcast. So we got a lot going on. We're very excited.
So I got to tell you, the 33rd team, I'm familiar with everything else that you're doing. The 33rd team came onto my radar about 10 days ago. And I've been seeing it pop up on my timeline. I've been seeing it in terms of some stories coming out. Can you what is the 33rd team? It sounds like there are a bunch of guys with ties to the NFL that have launched a new way to cover the league.
That's exactly right. It was launched by Mike Tannenbaum, who former GM of the Dolphins and also the Jets, and Tony Petitti, who used to run the NFL on CBS and launched Major League Baseball Network, is behind it. It's basically just a bunch of former players and coaches. There are 32 teams in the NFL. We consider ourselves the 33rd team, and we're going to be providing a lot of great content during the season. Mark Schlereth, as I said, who I do a show with on Spotify Live. We're going to do a show post-game every Monday night during the season. I'll also be doing a post-game show on their platform after every Sunday night football game. So it's just really, really good football content by the people that spent their entire careers inside the NFL.
I like it. I am in all the way. So there is no doubt that we're about to have, and who knows whether it's a success or a failure, but it's going to be fascinating the whole way through 49ers season because we know that there's a changing of the guard, certainly at quarterback, but the team that is built around the quarterback feels like a highly functioning team. And one of the things that Ray and I were just talking about is when you normally take a young quarterback and, drafted high and you put him on a team, he's in a bad situation right from the get-go because that's how he was drafted high. The team had a high draft pick, meaning that they were coming off a terrible year. That is not the situation that Trey Lance is walking into. He's got a supreme play caller. He's got an awful lot of talent on both sides of the ball. And he represents as big of an unknown as I think we've seen at starting quarterback in quite a few years.
Yeah, you're right. And listen, what you just said, I think, is the most significant thing to talk about when you talk about the Niners. It is a quarterback-driven league, there's no question. But the way Kyle Shanahan operates, and especially the way he's operated since he's been in San Francisco, is what matters most is around the quarterback. And let me give you an example, right? I am not a proponent of quarterback wins as a quarterback stat. The team wins or loses, and the quarterback plays a part in that, absolutely. And it's a quarterback-driven league. But, just go back to the last year's playoffs, the divisional game between Josh Allen and the Bills and Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. That goes down as a loss for Josh Allen in the official stat column. What else could he have done to help his team win that game? He did literally everything. It's not on him. But the reason I bring that up is Jimmy Garoppolo is the ultimate, swing state in an election when it comes to this. For example, if you go strictly by the numbers, as a starter, Jimmy Garoppolo's teams are 33-14, which is really, really good, right? He's one of only 9 quarterbacks since 1950 to have a winning percentage of over 700, minimum 30 games. So that sounds wonderful for Jimmy Garoppolo. But here's the part where I tell you he's averaged 1.5 touchdown passes per game, and he's had more 0 touchdown pass games, 8, than 3 touchdown pass games, 6. And that goes to the point you're talking about, David. San Francisco is about what's around the quarterback, perhaps more than any other team in the NFL.
Is that why, just going back to the Garoppolo stat you mentioned, is that why there hasn't been much of a market for him yet? Or is that entirely based on the fact that he had shoulder surgery and nobody's quite sure what kind of quarterback he is now.
Yeah, listen, I think that Garoppolo is, you either love him or you don't. I tend to be in the middle because I do think he functions very well. But if you ask him to win a game, like the NFC Championship game or the Super Bowl a couple of years when he overthrew Emmanuel Sanders, the results are very, very mixed, right? But I do believe the market was soft for Jimmy G because he's literally coming off shoulder surgery on his throwing shoulder. Like I found it hilarious on some level that my longtime friend and former colleague Adam Schefter, when the news broke of Jimmy Garoppolo's surgery, the next line of the tweet was, "It's not expected to affect his trade value." I'm like, come on, man. Like, we all know where that's coming from. Like, we know who you're getting the information from. I mean, that's clearly coming from Jimmy Garoppolo's agent because anybody knows with a grain of salt in their brain that if you have a quarterback that just had a shoulder surgery on his throwing shoulder, it's going to affect your trade value. Like, everybody in the league becomes like the state of Missouri. Show me first, and then we'll believe it.
Trey Wingo, he understands how the whole broadcast game works, and we got a top of the hour. Welcome, everyone, to your 4 o'clock.
You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM and HD1 San Francisco. Always live on Twitch, YouTube, and the free Odyssey app. Damn well better be free.
There you go, Trey. If you ever need any voiceover work done for any of your endeavors, Ray is available.
I'm putting that on my Twitter page. Damn, better well be free.
Just looking at the upcoming season, and thank God that we're at the third and final preseason game. I think we're all ready to get to it. The team that used to be here, now moved to Vegas, is, I think, one of the other most fascinating teams, because if you told me that the Raiders were all that in a bag of chips offensively and figured out a way back to the playoffs, and McDaniels really proves that he is a head coach after all, and Derek Carr has an MVP level year, and Devontae Adams is the talk of fantasy football shows left and right, I'd believe you. If you told me that they also came in dead last in their brutal division, I think I'd also believe you. I don't know if any team out there has a big of a pendulum swing in what could happen than the Raiders.
No, you're exactly right, Damon, and it's fascinating. On Caesar Sportsbook, their over-under win total is 8.5. And, people will be like, wait a minute, they made the playoffs last year, and they very well could have beaten the Bengals in that first postseason game. By the way, every one of the 3 Bengals games in the postseason, the other team could have easily won before they eventually lost to the Rams in the Super Bowl. But you're right, like, the Raiders are this weird litmus test because, listen, I'm not here for Derek Carr slander. I think he's a really, really, really good quarterback, and now he's reunited with his former college teammate Devontae Adams, and they were tremendous at Fresno State. Yet on the same token, you can make a very compelling argument that of the 4 quarterbacks in his own division, he's 4th, right? I mean, like, you have to put Mahomes over him. You have to put Russell Wilson over him based on his entire career, and then it's how high are you in Justin Herbert, and I'm pretty bleeping high on Justin Herbert. So I don't feel like it's a slam on Derek Carr to see that he's 4th in that division, but it also speaks to the quandary of the Raiders. He might just be 4th in that division. And the idea of what their season can be can literally be anything. Could I see them playing in the Super Bowl? Yes. Could I see them missing the postseason? Yeah. Like, it's really, really weird. They are the oddest team in the NFL, and on some level, I think Raider fans love that.
That said, the thing that has betrayed the Raiders year in and year out is not the quarterback. It's an awful defense. Not just a bad defense, not just an inconsistent one, a terrible defense. A defense that creates no turnovers. A defense that gives up a ton of yards. Has that been addressed sufficiently so that Derek Carr can be the best quarterback he can be?
Well, they have arguably as good a dual end pass rushers as anybody in the league right now. With the way Max Crosby has developed, by the way, the fact Max Crosby was taken in the 4th round the same year as they took the kid out of Clemson Cleveland Ferrell doesn't absolve them of the horrible pick of Cleveland Ferrell. But you have Crosby on one side. You have Chandler Jones. Since he came into the league, nobody has more sacks than Chandler Jones. So they have what you want in terms of rectifying the defense. They have two guys that can run a game plan rushing the passer. You know, I mean, like the Chargers went the other way. They not only get Khalil Mack to go opposite Bosa, but they also got J.C. Jackson, who has the most interceptions since he came into the league in 2018. Obviously, he's now on the mend now with that ankle surgery. But you know, the best way to make sure, like, if you have the choice, always to me, if you have the choice between a cover corner or a pass rusher, I would always take the pass rusher, because the cover corner takes one receiver out, pass rusher takes all of them out. So I do think that they did the best job they could in addressing that situation. The end result will be if Chandler Jones is the Chandler Jones we've seen in New England and in Arizona.
Trey Wingo here on 95.7 The Game. So, how disappointed were you by the Deshaun Watson outcome? And I'm not even discussing the creepiness of what Watson did. I think the disappointment almost has moved now to the commissioner, who negotiated for a power that he then abdicated twice to someone else. And to me, that just feels like a dereliction of duty by Roger Goodell.
Yeah, here's the best way I can. You're right. There's a lot there, and here's the best way to sort of go through that. I think you have to look at this as a two-pronged approach: the process and then the player. And we'll deal with the player in a second. This was the first test of the new disciplinary system that the NFL put in place with the CBA that was adopted in 2020. And, you know, the big knock against Goodell had always been, well, you're just going to do whatever you want, as we saw with the Deflategate when, you know, they went through all the court injunctions and all that kind of stuff, and the federal judges basically said, cool, there's no real science that they deflated the footballs, but at the end of the day, you gave this guy the power, so you got nothing. And I think it was, on some level, actually decently respectful of the commissioner to say, guys, let's find a solution together with the NFLPA, as opposed to doing the old loggerhead thing, where, you know, you can do whatever you want, but at the end of the day, I'm going to do what I want to do. And I think there's something to that, especially since this was the first test case through that new process. But all of that being said, Damon, to your point, if there was ever a player that deserved to have the entire book thrown at him, it's Deshaun Watson. And I know that Cleveland Brown fans are upset about that when I say that. The only question I would say to you as a Cleveland Browns fan is, if it wasn't your quarterback, what would you be saying about this guy? Like, what would you, like, be honest with me. If he wasn't your quarterback, what would you be saying? And of course, they'd be saying the same things they said about Ben Roethlisberger all those years and all this other kind of stuff. I mean, it was pretty clear in the decision from the disciplinary officer and Sue L. Robinson that Deshaun Watson's actions, according to her own words, qualified for the NFL standards on what was considered nonviolent sexual assault, and that all those massage sessions were premeditated to end up in a sexual situation. Okay? So that's the creepiness that you're talking about. And then for him, Deshaun, to go on and have a press conference immediately as soon as the ink was dry on the deal and basically say, yeah, I apologize, but only for the people that were triggered by it. I don't have anything to apologize for. I stand on my innocence. Are you bleeping kidding me? That was so egregious, and it wasn't a surprise that right after that, as I mentioned earlier, my former colleague and friend Adam Schefter, who is still my friend, just my former colleague, basically had a tweet from the league that says, if he doesn't do exactly what those behavioral therapists tell him to do, this thing is torn up and we're going to throw the book at him. They were so angry at him. Deshaun Watson right now is what I like to call Cleopatra. He's the queen of denial.
You've been saving that for some time.
Yeah, that was good. He had that locked and loaded. That was ready to go.
That said, I mean, I don't want to do the Watson thing over and over again, but it also seemed like everybody just sort of got tired of it and just wanted to pick a midpoint between what Goodell said he wanted and what Sue Robinson gave him originally, which was 12 weeks, 11 games. It's just that let's just split the difference and go home because we're fed up. How do you make a win or a loss for the system when it just ended up being another compromise?
Well, listen, but I think the idea of compromise was important to both sides, because The NFL has always been able to do whatever the hell they wanted, and they could have done it, as Damon said, in this situation. I think it was, whether you agree or not with this was the case to use it on, they used this as a case of good faith with the NFLPA. They want, again, the Sean Watson camp wanted no suspension, which was a joke. The NFL wanted at least a year and $8 million. So while they didn't get what they really wanted, 11 games is not insignificant, but you're right. Like, this was so overwhelmingly egregious. If you read the 15-page decision by Sue L. Robinson, I don't think anybody outside of A, someone with the last name of Watson, B, someone who makes money off the last name of Watson, or C, previously stated irrational Cleveland Browns fans, would have been upset in any way, shape, or form if they didn't throw the entire book at him.
Trey,
you can argue hypocrite. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I was saying we're running out of time, and I just wanted to find out for sure who you got coming up on the next Half Forgotten History on Spotify. You're a great storyteller. These are great stories.
Oh, sorry about that, Damon. Yeah, we got to listen. We were taping with Julian Edelman on Friday. With Jake Plummer, who is now a mushroom farmer. We've got him. We got Megatron. We got Hall of Famer Leroy Butler, Fred Taylor. We got a bunch of amazing guests lined up on Half Forgotten History. Matt Ryan. It all drops September 8th.
Can I go to Caesars and say I want the Trey Wingo suite? Is there a Trey Wingo suite?
Yes, it's called the Mark Anthony Villa on the top of the Octavius Tower. Highly recommend.
Oh, and I hear it's reasonably priced. Trey, thank you so much for
billionaires. Yeah.
Thanks for joining us. Thanks for being a friend of the show. Really appreciate your time as always, man.
You got it, brother. Ray, always good to talk to you, too. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. Trey Wingo, one of the good guys out there. One of the guys who's thriving in a post-ESPN existence, if there ever was one.
By having 9 jobs.
Well, see, but they're fun jobs. Like,
I wasn't saying they weren't fun. I'm just saying that's a lot of work for one little puppy.